So next I'm going to show you some sample preparation. When we're dispersing a powder into a liquid, first thing we have to do is to choose what liquid we're going to use to disperse the sample. It needs to be clear and free of bubbles and not too viscous, but importantly what it has to do is wet the sample. So the simplest and the cheapest thing to use is water, but you might find that you need to use some surfactants to reduce the surface tension between the water and the sample to help disperse the particles. So the first thing we'll do is a wetting test in a beaker. Testing the dispersant on the sample in a beaker means that if it doesn't wet very well, then we haven't made a mess inside the dispersion unit, which will take a little bit longer to clean. So in this case, we have a sample that's similar to a battery material. It's a silicon carbide sample. So what we're going to do first is to do that wetting test. So I will pop a little bit of sample into our beaker here. And first thing we'll test is just water. So add a little bit of water to that, see how well it disperses. So give it a little bit of a mix around. And you can see it's not too bad. The water's not sitting on top of the powder, but it is sort of clumping together at the sides, so it's not brilliantly dispersed in just water. So what we'll then do is take another sample of our powder, put that in there, and this time we'll use a little bit of surfactant to aid the dispersion. So this is an Igipal solution, and I'll just put a couple of drops of that into the sample, and then we'll do the same, mixing that up to see how well that wets the sample. So you can see from these two, you see one that's kind of just sitting around the edge of the beaker, whereas the other one is spreading out much more evenly, so it shows better dispersion. So in this case, this is the one we're going to measure using a surfactant solution of Igipal and deionized water to measure that one. So that's the first thing I would do whenever we get a new material, is to do a wetting test in a beaker and see what surfactants work best for you. Now, you'll understand the chemistry of your materials much better than I do, and there are also articles that you can use to help you to understand how to disperse powders into liquids. In this lab, we test a lot of different materials, and we've got quite a range of different surfactants and additives made up, so you can just try a few out and see what wets your sample best. So for this silicon carbide sample, similar size to a battery material, we're going to disperse it into water and use some Igipal to wet the sample.